Have you ever felt like quitting English not because you're lazy, but because your real life feels too heavy to carry? When your marriage is tense, your family feels distant. And even though you live in the United States, every English sentence comes out slow and fragile. In this video, I share one honest week of my life in America, where love was tested, family became my anchor, and English stopped being a subject and quietly became the way I survived, healed, and found my voice again. A question that won't leave. Have you ever noticed how one simple question can follow you around all day? Like a song you didn't choose but somehow know all the lyrics to? Last week in the United States, that question kept tapping me on the shoulder. Who is the one person you can always count on, even when everything else feels unstable? I wasn't asking it for a video. I wasn't asking it for motivation. I was asking it because my marriage felt tight and quiet at the same time. Like a room where no one is yelling but no one is breathing freely either. That I live in the US, surrounded by English every day. On paper, that sounds perfect for learning. In reality, when your emotions are heavy, your brain doesn't want grammar rules. It wants safety. Neuroscience actually backs this up. When stress hormones like cortisol are high, the part of your brain responsible for language learning, the prefrontal cortex, goes a little offline. So if you've been blaming yourself for suddenly getting worse at English, your brain might just be protecting you, not sabotaging you. That week, my husband and I were polite but distant. No big fights. Just small silences. The kind that make you replay conversations in your head while brushing your teeth. I would practice English sentences in the mirror, slowly, clearly, then stop halfway and laugh at myself. Not because it was funny, but because it felt pointless. What's the use of perfect pronunciation when you don't know how to say what you feel? Then, almost accidentally, I thought about my sister. Not in a dramatic way. Just a quiet memory of how she listens. How she doesn't rush to fix things. Psychologists call this secure attachment. Knowing someone is there lowers your nervous system's alarm. And when that alarm lowers, something interesting happens. Learning becomes possible again. Language comes back. Breath comes back. I realized something uncomfortable but freeing. Maybe English wasn't the problem. Maybe my motivation wasn't broken. Maybe I was trying to learn while emotionally dehydrated. Like asking a plant to grow without water, and then criticizing it for being slow. So in this video, I'm not here to push you harder. I'm here to walk with you through a real week of my life. Love strained, family grounding me, English becoming gentle instead of demanding. We'll practice listening, reading, and speaking, yes, but we'll do it the way real life does it. Slowly and perfectly, with pauses for feeling. Because sometimes the person you can always count on isn't pushing you forward. Sometimes they're the reason you stop running and finally hear yourself think. One long week in America. Monday mornings in America are supposed to feel productive. Coffee to go. Calm smiles. A sense that everything is moving forward. But that week, Monday felt like wearing someone else's jacket, technically fine, emotionally wrong. I drove to the grocery store listening to English radio, not to understand every word, but just to feel less alone. Funny thing is, when you're overwhelmed, your brain hears English like background rain. The sounds pass through you without landing at home. My husband and I shared space, not connection. We spoke in short sentences. Practical ones. Did you eat? I'll be late. If you're learning English, you know these sentences well. They're safe. They don't require emotion. Linguists call this functional language, useful, efficient, and emotionally empty. And that's exactly how my week felt. Functional, efficient, empty. By Wednesday, the weight showed up in my body. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing. There's a psychological reason for this. When emotional tension builds, your body switches into low-grade survival mode. In that state, learning new sounds, new rhythms, a new language feels like too much. So if you've ever sat down to practice English and suddenly felt tired, distracted, or irritated, congratulations. Your nervous system is doing its job a little too well. I tried to push through anyway. I read short English paragraphs out loud. Slowly. One sentence at a time. I am here. Pause. I am doing my best. Pause. First it felt ridiculous. But repetition does something powerful. Research shows that slow, repeated speech lowers anxiety and rebuilds confidence. It's not about fluency. It's about trust, trusting your voice to exist without being perfect. That evening I finally messaged my sister. No long explanation. Just one honest line. This week feels heavy. She replied minutes later. Not with advice. Not with solutions. Just, I'm here. Talk when you're ready. That sentence did more for my English than any textbook. Why? Because safety unlocks expression. When you feel safe, you want to speak. When you don't, silence feels smarter. By Friday, something shifted. My husband and I took a walk. No deep talk. Just steps matching steps. Sometimes connection comes back physically before it comes back verbally. I noticed my English improving in small ways. Clearer pronunciation. Less self-correction. My brain wasn't fighting anymore. It was cooperating. This long week taught me something simple but uncomfortable. You don't fail at English because you lack discipline. You pause because life asks you to. And when you listen to that pause instead of attacking it, learning sneaks back in quietly, like understanding a sentence without realizing you translated it. Maybe your week feels long too. So stay here. We're not rushing. We're rebuilding one slow human sentence at a time. Marriage under quiet stress. There's a special kind of stress that doesn't shout. It doesn't throw plates or slam doors. It sits quietly between two people and pretends everything is fine. That was my marriage that week. If you've ever tried to practice English while pretending you're fine, you already know how exhausting that is. Your mouth says simple words, but your mind is somewhere else, replaying unfinished conversations like a podcast you can't pause. In psychology, this is called emotional suppression. When you don't express what you feel, your brain spends energy holding things down. That energy has to come from somewhere. Often it comes from focus, memory, and language. So when people say, I used to be better at English, I gently wonder what they stopped saying in their real life. Because silence is not free. It charges interest. My husband and I spoke English that week, but only the safe kind. Logistics, schedules, weather. The kind of English you can say without revealing yourself. And here's the strange part. My pronunciation was fine, but my voice sounded smaller, quieter, almost like I was asking permission to exist. That's not an accent problem. That's an emotional one. Neuroscience explains this beautifully. When emotional connection drops, the vagus nerve, responsible for calm communication, loses tone. Your voice tightens. Your breathing shortens. Your speech speeds up or slows down unnaturally. So if your English sounds worse during relationship stress, it's not regression. It's your body signaling uncertainty. One night, alone in the kitchen, I practiced speaking out loud. Not to improve English, just to hear myself. I said one sentence again and again. I feel overwhelmed. Slowly. Clearly. No drama. That sentence is simple, but it's powerful. Studies show that labeling emotions reduces their intensity. In other words, naming the feeling calms the nervous system. And a calm nervous system learns better. Speaks better. The next day, something small but real happened. I used that same sentence with my husband. No explanation. No blame. Just the sentence. The room didn't explode. The world didn't end. And strangely, my English felt stronger afterward. Not because the grammar changed, but because my body relaxed. Connection, even partial, gives language a place to land. Here's the uncomfortable truth most courses won't tell you. You don't lose English during hard seasons. You hide it. You protect it. Like someone lowering their voice in a tense room. Once the room feels safer, the voice comes back. So if your marriage, your relationship, or your family life feels quietly heavy right now, don't force fluency. Practice honesty slowly in English if you can. One sentence. One feeling. That's not just emotional work. That's language training at its deepest level. Because when your life is allowed to speak, your English follows naturally, no pushing required. My sister's silent support. Support doesn't always arrive with a speech. Sometimes it shows up like a chair you didn't notice until you finally sat down. That's how my sister was for me that week. No dramatic phone calls. No long advice sessions. Just her presence, steady, quiet, unmovable. And strangely enough, that silence taught me more about English than any loud motivation ever could. We talked late one night. I spoke slowly, choosing simple words, the kind learners are often embarrassed to use. Short sentences. Long pauses. I apologized for my English without realizing I was doing it. She stopped me gently. You don't need better English, she said. You just need space to finish your thoughts. That sentence landed deep. Because that's what most learners are missing. Not vocabulary, but permission. Psychology has a term for this: co-regulation. When someone calm listens to you, your nervous system borrows their calm. Your breathing slows. Your voice steadies. And suddenly words come out more clearly. This is why children learn language best with patient caregivers, not strict teachers. The brain opens when it feels accompanied. As I spoke, I noticed something unexpected. My pronunciation improved naturally. Not because I tried harder, but because I felt less watched. Less judged. This is backed by research in second language acquisition. Anxiety directly reduces speaking accuracy. Lower the anxiety and fluency rises on its own. No drills required. My sister didn't correct me. She didn't rush my sentences. She let the silence do its work. And in those pauses I found better words. Not fancier ones, but truer ones. I'm tired. I feel unsure. I still love him. Simple English. Real English. The kind people actually use when life isn't polished. That night changed how I practiced afterward. Instead of chasing perfect sentences, I started practicing safe sentences. Ones I could say even on bad days. Once my body didn't resist. If you're learning English, try this. Choose 3 sentences that feel emotionally honest but linguistically simple. Say them slowly, out loud. Let them be enough. The bond between sisters or anyone who truly listens is powerful because it doesn't demand improvement. It offers acceptance first. And acceptance is fuel. Not the loud kind, the kind that lasts. That week I stopped asking, "How do I sound?" and started asking, "Do I feel safe saying this?" The second question changed everything. Not just my English, my marriage, my sense of self. Because when someone stands quietly beside you, your voice doesn't have to fight to be heard. It just arrives. Love, language, and healing. Healing rarely feels dramatic. Feels repetitive. Like washing the same cup again and again, not because it's dirty, but because you need something familiar in your hands. That week, I realized English had become one of those cups. Not a goal. A ritual. Something steady when love felt uncertain that I stopped studying. Instead, I narrated my life in English slowly, quietly. I'm making tea. Pause. The water is hot. Pause. This might sound childish, but there's solid science behind it. Self-directed speech reduces emotional overload and improves cognitive clarity. You're not just practicing English. You're regulating your nervous system. At the same time, my marriage began to soften. Not because we fixed everything, but because we stopped pretending nothing was wrong. One evening, I said to my husband in simple English, "I don't need solutions tonight. I need closeness." That sentence wasn't elegant, but it was accurate. And accuracy matters more than complexity. Language learners often chase advanced expressions, thinking confidence lives there. But confidence actually lives in alignment, when what you say matches what you feel. Studies in communication psychology show that congruent speech builds trust faster than fluent speech. In other words, people connect to honesty, not perfection. As the days passed, I noticed my listening improving too. When you're emotionally present, you hear better. Not just words, but tone, pauses, intention. That's real listening practice. Not test listening. Life listening. And it trains the same brain systems, just with meaning attached. I began reading short English texts again, slow ones. Stories about family, about forgiveness. I read out loud not to sound good but to feel grounded. Reading aloud activates both comprehension and emotional processing. It's like stretching your mind and heart at the same time. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It arrived in small, repeatable actions. Speak one true sentence. Listen without fixing. Read something that reflects your life. These are tiny habits, but they compound. By Sunday, my English felt warmer. My marriage felt less brittle. Not solved. Just alive again. Here's the quiet lesson. Language heals best when it's woven into love, not pressure. When English becomes part of how you care for yourself and others, it stops being something you conquer. It becomes something that carries you. And sometimes that's all you need to keep going. Science behind feeling safe. Feeling safe sounds emotional, almost poetic, but it's actually biological. Your brain is constantly asking one question. Am I safe right now? And it answers that question before it lets you learn anything new, including English. That week in the US, I didn't change my study method. I changed my environment. And my brain noticed immediately. Neuroscience explains this through something called the polyvagal theory. In simple words, when your nervous system feels safe, it activates the social engagement system. That's the state where your voice becomes warmer, your listening sharpens, and your memory works better. When you don't feel safe emotionally or relationally, your body prioritizes protection over pronunciation. This is why learning English during relationship stress feels impossible. Your brain isn't lazy. It's busy scanning for emotional danger. And no amount of motivation can override biology. But safety can. That week, safety didn't come from big conversations. It came from small, predictable moments. Drinking coffee with my sister on a video call. Sitting next to my husband without talking. Reading familiar English sentences before bed. Predictability tells the brain, you can relax now. And when the brain relaxes, language flows. Research in educational psychology shows that learners in low-stress environments retain vocabulary up to 40% better. But here's the part no one tells you. Emotional stress counts as stress, even if you're smiling on the outside. Especially then, so I stopped forcing progress. I focused on signals of safety, slower speech, softer tone, longer pauses. If you want a practical exercise, try this. Read one short English paragraph out loud, but pause after every sentence and take one calm breath. You're training your nervous system and your language skills at the same time. By the end of that week, my English hadn't magically advanced, but it felt easier. And ease is a scientific indicator of safety. When something feels easier, your brain has stopped resisting. Here's the punchline most people miss. Fluency doesn't come from pressure. Comes from permission. Permission to be slow. To be emotional. To be human first and a learner second. When you build safety through family, love, or even small daily rituals, your brain stops guarding the door. And English walks in like it always belonged there. Small actions, real change. Big change loves good marketing, but real change prefers small rooms and low voices. That week, nothing in my life transformed overnight. No dramatic apologies. No perfect conversations. Just small actions, almost boring ones, that quietly rewired how I felt about my marriage and my English. Every morning I chose one English sentence to live inside for the day. Not to memorize. To use. Mondays was, I don't have to rush. Tuesdays was, it's okay to ask again. These sentences became anchors. Cognitive science shows that repeated, emotionally relevant phrases strengthen neural pathways faster than random vocabulary lists. Your brain remembers what matters to you. In my marriage, I applied the same principle. One small act of presence. Sitting together for 5 minutes without phones. Saying one honest sentence without defending it. These micro-actions reduce relational stress, which directly lowers cognitive load. Less mental noise means more mental space. For listening, reading, speaking, I also changed how I practice speaking. Instead of long sessions, I did 2-minute check-ins. I spoke out loud about what I was feeling right now. No storytelling. No polishing. This mirrors a technique used in trauma-informed language learning. Short, Present-focused speech increases confidence and reduces avoidance. BY Saturday, I noticed something subtle. I wasn't translating as much. Not because my English improved dramatically, but because my mind was quieter. Silence inside is powerful. It's where comprehension grows. If you're struggling, try this for 1 week. 1 sentence per day. 1 honest action per day. That's it. No tracking. No pressure. Change doesn't need your obsession. It needs your consistency. Because when life feels manageable, language becomes manageable too. And that's how real progress sneaks up on you without asking for permission. The bond that doesn't break. There's a moment, usually very quiet, when you realize something didn't fall apart the way you feared it would. For me, that moment came at the end of the week, standing in the kitchen, listening to my sister laugh through the phone while my husband washed dishes nearby. No big resolution. No movie-style ending. Just life continuing softer than before. That's when it hit me. Some bonds don't need constant proof. They don't demand perfect words or flawless timing. They hold even when you're tired, even when your English sounds clumsy, even when your heart feels unsure. Psychologists call this emotional permanence, the ability to feel connected even in absence or difficulty. And it's one of the strongest predictors of resilience, in relationships and in learning. My sister didn't fix my marriage. She didn't teach me new vocabulary. What she gave me was something more useful, a stable emotional reference point. When you know there's at least one person who won't disappear when you struggle, your brain relaxes. And a relaxed brain learns, speaks, listens, tries again. That week in America taught me that English isn't just a language you practice. It's a mirror. When your inner world feels fractured, your speech reflects that. When your inner world feels supported, even quietly, your language steadies. This is why some days you sound fluent and other days you don't. It's not randomness. It's regulation. If you're watching this and feeling close to giving up, I want you to ask yourself one gentle question. Who is the person you can always count on? It might be a sister, a friend, a version of yourself that hasn't quit yet. You don't need many. You need one. Then do something small with that bond. Speak 1 sentence out loud. Read 1 paragraph slowly. Listen without multitasking. Let language be part of connection, not a performance. Research consistently shows that meaning-based learning lasts longer than pressure-based learning. In simple terms, what feels human sticks. As the week ended, my marriage wasn't perfect. My English wasn't perfect. But both felt unbreakable in a new way. Not because they were strong, but because they were allowed to be fragile without collapsing. That's the secret no course sells you. Progress doesn't come from being unbreakable. It comes from knowing what holds you when you bend. So keep going. Slowly. With real sentences. Real feelings. Real support.